everyone. Welcome to Folklore Meets. Let's give it up to Chet Guthrie, the creator of Dream Poet, a YouTube channel about history, legends, and between other stuff. Talk to us a little bit about yourself.
Well, howdy. Thank you, Rose. Well, anyway, I'm Chet Guthrie. I am a vlogger. I have a YouTube channel. What I do is I go to a lot of these abandoned locations, these historical locations, almost out of the history books. I did get my start in Florida, Jacksonville, which was kind of weird. When I initially moved to Florida, my main objective was to vlog 365 days of my life straight. When I had moved to Florida, I was living in the state of Tennessee. I just graduated from the University of Tennessee. I wasn't really having much luck career-wise. I mean, it was very hard. Like, at one point, I was living out in my truck. I mean, just trying to make it. And it just came to a point where I was like, you know, I can't do this anymore. So as I'm sitting there pondering where I want to take my life next, I thought, why not go crazy and buy a sailboat and live on it for a year? That was the initial goal. And so I did just that. I just picked up a side job. I bought a Cal 29. For those of you who don't know what it is a 30-foot sailboat. It is practically a tiny house on the water. And from there, I vlogged all my adventures. Some of those things that I can name off in the beginning was kayaking with manatee. Well, I did kayak with manatees. I've swam with manatees. I stayed in a hotel that Elvis Presley stayed in, right down the side room. I did go to an abandoned theme park on the side of the road in Florida that, quite honestly, people pass by it all the time off of SR16. They wonder what it is. I've done that. And I almost came close to my goal, but then the world pandemic happened, COVID happened, and my mental health took a pretty bad turn for the worst. I really wasn't doing well, and I took about a 4-month hiatus, but I came back and I started doing one vlog a week. And from there, that's where I really started seeing growth in my channel. Well, let me recall one good story. There is a story about who we call Tall Betsy. Tall Betsy was, quote unquote, an urban legend here in Cleveland, Tennessee, of a witch that used to live in the area during the 20s. Midnight would roll around, and the children who were out around midnight, they would basically be taken up to her crypt to be eaten and their bones thrown into a well at the local school. Okay, that is a local legend that I grew up with that everybody seemed to love. Another one, again, I grew up with this too, living in Cleveland, Tennessee, not Ohio. We had a house that sat on this hill out on the outskirts of town, right next to the railroad tracks, that we called the Julius Roth house. And Julius Roth, he was during the Civil War, was the richest man in the state of Tennessee. He owned and operated all the copper mines, in the Turtletown, Copper Hill, and his home was in Cleveland. But when the Civil War broke out and the Confederacy, took control of those mines, Julius Roth held on for it for as long as he could to protect the interests of the investors in New Orleans and the investors in New York. But it eventually comes to a point where he gets run out of town, gets forced up to Cincinnati, where he seeks asylum. But to go back to the story, allegedly, Julius Roth had a tunnel system that used to run from the basement of his house down to the railroad depot below. And for a really long time, that was a lot of rumor in my town. And in 2019, just off the side of this street we called Emmons Street, and the firehouse there, they did find a tunnel system. Now, granted, in the beginning, they thought of it as a really a really complex drainage system. But if you look at pictures of it, Rose, they were not. They could. There's no way they could be there simply for drainage. Like, and you listen to the old timers in this area, the East Tennessee area, Bradley County, they will tell you that as kids, they used to go to some of these big giant holes in these basements of these old buildings. They would go inside these tunnels and it would shoot them out in an entirely different part of the city. Really, that's where I see the big explosion that was, well, 700 subscribers.
I love the fact that you have absorbed so much history from all this. And not to get off topic, but I don't want to forget this little detail that you just shared with us. You said that you were staying in your car. You know what's funny? I've always had this fantasy of, if I didn't have kids, obviously, because obviously my kids need a roof to stay in, right, and feel secure. But if I did not have kids, I always thought about having an RV and like just travel the world, live adventures and stuff like that. So I'm just glad that even though you was in a rough situation, you started looking at the positive outcomes that can come out of your situation, and you just went ahead and did it. Because, you know, not a lot of people have that willingness, especially like you just remarked after COVID started, people started isolating, especially when people were by themselves, not really even by themselves. There were people that were stuck with their partners that they didn't want to be with. And like, it was a lot of mental toll on a lot of people. And like, I'm glad you're here with us sharing all this stuff. I have a question for you. One of the things that caught our eye here in Flocally was that you kind of started, because I was looking at your videos, and it seems like you kind of started doing this mystery stuff, like you just shared with us, and like this story about these kids being thrown away. It's like, it's creepy, but it's just, when they say in American Horror Story, they say that monster exists and they're humans, you know, like, and it's true, you know, it's ridiculous how you came out with the idea of coming and do this. There is so much of our history that we do not pay attention to or explore more, you know? So what's your goal with your storytelling?
Honestly, the goal right now is to make a living of it. But as of right now, the goal is to get about 1,000 subscribers. That way I can start claiming some monetization through AdSense. I could probably start running some sponsorship, and potentially probably go ahead and put my Cash App and my Venmo up there. That way, for those who really like my content, you know, they can throw a little bit of gas money my way, and I can go to some of these other places besides my local city and nearby tri-state areas.
That's actually very genius. I've engaged in most of your videos, and especially the one where you said that you were underwater. And I was like, that was the first one I saw. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is what he's doing. Okay. And I started checking more. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Why I didn't see this before? And I started seeing like more. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are like thrilled to like learn more about what you're doing. Also, I did notice that you have some haters around, which is part of success.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me because you're like, there's so many people that like take it so serious, and like it just like coming back to the mental toll, to the mental health issues, it affects them, you know. And you're just this person who's like, listen, I'm traveling around doing what I love. So I'm not even bothered. I love that energy of yours. I love it. From all these journeys, which one has been the one that inspired you the most?
In the state of Florida. I went down to Silver Springs. It's in the Ocala area. And I think it is the world's largest something, but the water is absolutely crystal clear. Like, you can look 40 feet down and you can look all the way to the bottom. I would like to say that was probably the most inspiring, just because it was like walking into some different type of some kind of different plane of existence.
Like a fairy tale. I can
Yeah, well,
imagine.
it was almost spiritual in a way because there came a point where we did like I did kayak up to these manatees. I mean, these gentle giants, they were like this far away from my boat, and it was just totally urethral. Like, I mean, you can't touch them, you can do passive observance, but it felt spiritual. Like I felt like a sense of this is what heaven is like.
It sounds very, very like heavenly. So it must not be so far from that.
Florida to me is like one of the most one of the most significant ecological and historical. It's one of those states, and it's like people always just want to look at what's popular, but if you go to these like the springs, you want to talk about a spiritual experience, just like what I was saying about Silver Springs. That's one of those places. Or if you're going to the Orlando area, instead of spending $500 at Universal or Disney, why not go to Kelly Rock Springs, which is right down the road in Apopka? That is another really, really awesome one. But I digress.
Just to put this out there, maybe you would like to make maybe a story about this. Did you know that, I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but I read it about it in Puerto Rico. So I'm not sure what's the intake over here. I know that across countries, stories change. Christopher Columbus was the one who invented the idea of mermaids, right? Because he saw a manatee. He started calling it a mermaid. People started making this imagery about like what mermaids look like. And
Yep.
when they find out it was a manatee, and they started calling it a sea cow. And it was
Yep.
like, it's just funny because the mermaid theories just stayed with everybody. And they were like, we kind of like that idea the most. So let's just make something out of that. And, that's funny because it was like, for someone that came here and, came to Puerto Rico and to here to the United States and said that discovered, seems like he also discovered the manatee. It's just funny to me. It's really funny. I also read like a couple months ago about this company, Nestle, trying to privatize a spring here in Florida for their own economical benefit. Do you know anything
And
about
quite
that?
honestly, I wish they would keep their hands off of it. I mean, I can understand some type of economic gain from it, but when in that type of situation, I'm very much for preservation. Don't touch it. You can conserve it, but don't touch it. But it's like that's where I stand in that regard.
It's just sad how many resources, beautiful resources we have as human beings, and how we like corrupt it so easily, like it don't matter. Like I'm not sure, and not to turn religious or anything, but I feel like this world was like perfectly balanced for us to exist. And without one of those resources, we will all cease to exist. So why are we just constantly destroying what we were meant to protect? Let's say that you took an extreme decision, and instead of going around, you just went into a forest and started living in the forest, and you just started like learning how to build stuff for yourself, for survival and stuff like that, and you just documented all this stuff. Just imagine that you have just like a beautiful river just by you, and you just build your own like stay right there so that you can like fish and stuff like that. And I don't know where there's like workers and say, yeah, we're privatizing this resource here because we're building, I don't know what, a 1 or 2 miles away from here. And you're like, what? Like, do you know how many animals I see here every day? Like, what are you doing? Like, what about them?
Yep.
Like we need all of those resources, and this is part of our ecosystem. And it's just sad. And I'm with you on that. And preservation, we have enough buildings, and I'm pretty sure Nestle has their own good
Yeah.
share of money. They can like do something more innovative that doesn't have anything to do with corrupting our ecosystem more than it is already. I have a question for you. What's your next step? Like, what's your next place to visit? Brief us a little bit in it.
Next place that I've got on my list. Actually, there is one that I do have. It was a recent TikTok video that I had seen, but in the mountains of East Tennessee, the year is 1934, and TVA, which is Tennessee Valley Authority, what they're planning on doing is they're planning on damming the Clinch River. In that area, it's very there's a lot of flood damage. Nobody can really live there. They're wanting to help the people that are there to have some kind of economic gain. Mind you, this is during the Great Depression and people are struggling at that time. But while they are surveying the Clinch River, they find what they believe to be a temple. They start digging around it. They start digging further, until this temple that they have found is 100 by 100 foot in diameter. You have these big, what look to be these big giant pillars that used to stick up out of the ground that are no more. And they're finding remains and they're finding all these other artifacts. One actually catches the eye of an archaeologist here at Cambridge University. And what this was, it was a box of purple paint, which could only be found in Egypt, or in a mollusk that came from Egypt. That's why they believed this temple to be an Egyptian colony. But, you won't hear anything about that. I mean, because this is what I'm about to get into next. You have this was written by a Cherokee principal chief in the 1820s. He talks about how the Cherokee, when they came through the mountains and they were migrating and going down there, there was this tribe of people that they called sorcerers, light creators. They called them the Anikatani. The Anikatani were what we believe to be the Mississippian tribes, or what was left of the Mississippian tribes. They pushed them out, they killed them, and this was the extinction of that people. But that's what the Cherokee called them, was the Anikatani. But all this, which is surveyed, you can find it in historical documents. It's not some kind of government, it makes you honestly wonder what could have been found if they hadn't have dammed the Clinch River. We may have found something that could have totally rewritten history. But that's my next video that I'm working on currently.
The title of your new video?
It's probably going to be, haven't really thought of the video. I thought, I guess it would be would it be Egyptians in East Tennessee, ?
Something that I spot over there that you just mentioned. Yeah, it's true what you say. This is not government classified or anything, but when I say they don't want us to know, it's like they of course it's at the public, it's everything is in plain sight, but they will not willingly tell us about it, because the more we know, the more we expose a lot of falsehood that we've been indoctrinated with. And
Yep.
That's one of the reasons I love what you're doing. I want to ask you, because I've seen that some of your videos have over 10,000 views. And I think if you're thinking about waiting for 1,000 subscribers to put your Venmo and your PayPal or your Cash App, please do it right here too. Do it now, because prices are inflating.
Yep.
And I really want you to keep doing this. I don't want you to stop because gas out of nowhere started costing $6 per gallon, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's too much. I had a nightmare like that a month ago. My mom was staying here, and she would always be very strict with me when it comes to the gas. She wouldn't let me go to empty, but I wait to empty so I can fill it up completely after, right? So my mom is
Yeah.
put some gas. And that stayed in my head. And I went to sleep and I had this nightmare of my mom telling me, put some gas. And I look at the gas and it's empty. And I look at the gasoline and it's $6. I woke up from that really quick. But for me, it was a nightmare because, like we're working so hard and nothing is going up for us. So I feel it comes down to all of us supporting each other and our dreams, because it's not about dreams anymore. They just want us to forget what we were meant to do. They just want us to not have these type of hobbies that enlighten us. They just want us to, like, I don't want to use that word, but it's like they want to enslave us. The more we like comply, the more our dreams are like die. Please go ahead and tell us your YouTube channel, even though I have it already in Folklore, and I'll put a link under for people to be redirected to it. Give us your Venmo, your Cash App, your PayPal.
Alrighty. I mean, you can also find me out at Chet Guthrie, on Instagram at Chet Guthrie 4. That's another place that you can find my main Instagram. I can't say that my Cash App off the top of my head or my Venmo, but I'm pretty sure in the links below you could probably post it there and probably no issue.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell your audience?
Like and subscribe and keep following to keep up with more awesome content.
Also, if you guys have like an idea of some other legends or like stories that you would like to talk about or like learn about, please go ahead and reach out to him, let him know about this story, and maybe if he checks up on the story and it's interesting enough, he'll go there and investigate for you guys. So guys, give it up again for Chet Guthrie. This is your host, Rose Sanchez from Folklore Meets. Say goodbye, Chet.
All right. See y'all later. Anchor down.
Goodbye.